right away, so I thought it just went in the box.
Steve won the football game.
I was watching it too.
Rudy, you're not gonna sign off for you.
Yeah, that's a little.
I'll be fine.
If I do,
We'll wake everybody up.
I'll have
You know, that reminds me, Rudy, that little bike ride there reminds me of something that happened when I was in high school. We had, in the old building, we had study hall. There was half of the period before lunch and the other half after lunch. And it was down next to the lunchroom, in part where you used to see the shop. And she was just sat up on a platform about that high. Some nasty boys had learned how to put time fuses on firecrackers by lighting a cigarette and sticking a fuse in it. And some nasty group of these young students had it figured out that we had just enough time to rig a cherry bomb that way and roll it under the platform, which we took care to move back a little bit so that you chair. Yes, Dave. So the teacher's chair just fit on the platform. That thing went off and he went backward off that platform into the radiator.
if you had firecrackers and cherry bombs today, you'd probably be expelled for a year, if not one.
You don't get caught.
Don't get caught.
Another thing we found that they're waterproof. You can flush them down the toilet and they rattle every pipe in the whole building when they go on.
Hey, my pipe.
Well, I guess it's time. Well, we should do the swearing in first before we call the meeting to order. Dan?
We have to do the pledge too.
We have to do the swearing in first.
So that the pledge counts.
Yep, where do you want me and what do you want to do?
If you two guys want to just stand up and then I'll just read the pledge. There was a
Oh, okay.
All of us.
typo on the agenda. It says city attorney, but it's supposed to be city administrator. But anyway, I changed that. So, all right, yeah, if you want to just raise your right hand and then after I say aye, just say your name. I
Mike Canrell.
do solemnly swear to support the Constitution of the United States, the Constitution of the State of Minnesota, and to discharge faithfully the duties of the office of City Council Member of the City of Kenyon, City Council Mayor of the City of Kenyon, Minnesota, to the best of my judgment and ability, so help me God.
I do.
I do.
Okay, well, thank you.
And now, we may as well remain standing and do the pledge and have that done. I pledge
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, then we call the January 8th, 2019 City Council meeting to order. All council members except Mr. Hankey present, Engineer Ryan, Attorney Rigg, Administrator Lawson, and I see no ordinary citizens, a group of extraordinary citizens here. So I don't believe we were going to have any citizen comments tonight. Are there any corrections or additions to the agenda?
I have two additions, Mayor. The first is, I think under old business B, just an update on the county solid waste ordinance process.
And
The second item is my appointment to National League of Cities. You could just say committee, or it's called Small Cities Council, but it's one of the policy committees. So that's an update, I guess, but I wanted to just talk
yeah,
about
I'm
that
not
a little bit.
sure where would be
I don't know, new business.
I guess that would be as appropriate as anything. But, the last item there, that would be F.
Yeah.
So, do we have a motion to accept the agenda as amended?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. This is gonna take a little getting used to. I keep looking over there for a second, expecting John or Fred to be there. Well, John was over there also.
Yeah.
Consent agenda. Is there anything that should be removed from consent agenda, or do we have a motion to accept that as is?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Motion passes. So we move on to presentations, public hearings, etc. And we do have a presentation tonight from Jessica Seide.
Close save.
See,
Yep, there you go. Perfect.
there's so many possibilities in that
Exactly,
name.
yep.
And Mike Wynn.
All right, I gotta get her PowerPoint up here, so just give me a minute here.
They have a presentation on the Award Zero Death program.
All right, let's give me this.
I wish the world would get overcrowded very quickly at that rate.
Well, yes. Isn't technology marvelous? How it helps us get
Yes.
things done so much quicker.
Those old, slow legal pads.
Let's see if they have programs that keep forcing themselves open. All right, I think we just about got it here. And there it is.
In progress.
Okay.
Well, good evening, Mayor Engel and members of the City Council. My name is Jessica Seide, and I am the TZD, or Towards Zero Death, also known as TZD, State Road Grant Coordinator.
I'm Officer Mike, and I'm our TZ coordinator for Kenyon. So can I excuse my lovely voice as I speak to you tonight. So I might save a little bit of it for American Idol.
And then,
So pretty much TZD, our vision is to reduce fatalities and a series of injuries on the Minnesota roads to zero. Hence why it's towards zero. That's the goal for all of us as we try to enhance enforcement towards this vision. So next slide. So again, mission is to move southeast Minnesota towards zero death by using education, enforcement, engineering, and emergency medicals and trauma services. So since my voice is not the greatest, I'm going to let Jessica speak the whole thing.
Next slide, please. Thank you. And how we're planning on doing that is by collaboration. The Towards Zero Death program, we focus on the application of 4 different areas to reduce crashes. So we call them the 4 E's. And that is, like Mike just mentioned, the enforcement, engineering, education and outreach, emergency, medical, and trauma services, and then recently added the 5th, which is everyone, since everyone shares the road. So in 2003, when Towards Zero Death TZD started, we had an uptick in traffic fatalities on our road. We had 655 people die on our roads in 2003. Since then, in 2017, we had 358 people die on our roads. That is the lowest number since 1943. And that's also the second lowest since 1926. And that compares to 392 in 2016 and then 411 in 2015. So we need to keep doing the good work that's being done, but also look for innovative ways to keep the downward trend continuing. I don't have to remind anybody in this room that each of those fatalities was somebody's brother, mother, sister, friend, loved one. Next slide, please. And then while the state, which is the blue line, saw a decrease in fatalities from 655 in 2003 down to 358, which is a 46% decrease. That's amazing, that's great. The southeast region, which is 11 different counties, saw a decrease from 87 to 33, which is a decrease of 62%. So the southeast region, and that is from 2003 to 2017, was definitely heading in the right direction. So that's 2017 data. That was really great. We're definitely headed in the right direction. So, year to date, as of January 8th, 2019, we have had 8 traffic-related deaths on Minnesota roads compared to 4 at this time last year. That is today's information. As of yesterday, when I went and looked at it, we were 8-1. So we are not starting this year off on the right foot at all. We've already had 8 deaths on our roads. And also with that saying, around this time last year, August of last year, by the end of August, we were, when we always compare 2017 year to date and 2018. So last year, August, we were below the number that we had in 2017. So we always try to reduce the number of fatalities on our roads. And so we always look at what number we were at the year before. We were below that number, and we had been the entire year. End of September, or end of August, we had a devastating year statewide, but also, as some of you know, Goodhue County had a devastating fall. We had quite a few fatalities on our roads here in Goodhue County. We saw quite a few fatalities. So with that being said, the number went up. And from being below the number, which 2017 ended at 358, by the end of 2018, we ended up having 380, or at least that's the preliminary numbers. Those aren't set in stone until after March. But we had 380 traffic-related deaths. That is the first time, well, at least in the 5 years that I've been here, that we have actually gone the opposite direction, and we have now gone further up. So that is an increase of over 22 traffic fatalities on our roads in the state of Minnesota. So, once again, we need to work together to make sure that we can get back to our previous downward trend of fatalities on our road. So how do we do this? Once again, collaboration, but also it comes to changing in culture, specifically our traffic safety culture. How do we do that? Well, once again, let's talk about what a traffic safety culture is. If everybody's speeding on the road, and we believe that that's okay because everybody else is doing it, then we're more likely to do that. So we need to change that thought process, and we need to change that culture, which is very difficult to do. Some of the things that we've done statewide, this is an example of Message Mondays. You can see that on some of the digital message boards that we have throughout the state. This one says, have some class, stay off with my bumper. During the holiday season, they had some, I thought they were funny, but some funny ones, and then during football season, they have ones about fumbles and that kind of thing. So they do them around what's going on at that time. And that's a way of, some people think they're funny messages, some people hate the messages and they think they're ridiculous. Either way, whether you like them or you don't like them, you're talking about them. And that's the point. People are now talking about traffic safety that either wouldn't have been before or they're just talking about them. So that's part of it. That's part of changing that traffic safety culture. So our goal is 0 deaths, and 0 is attainable, but it will definitely take all of us working together to get there. When in 2003, when we had 655 deaths on our roads, they probably would have thought 358 was unattainable at that point as well. We were able to reach that. So moving forward, if we work together, we will reach our next goals. Which brings us to switch. Yep. So TZD has also set new traffic safety goals for 2020, and our new goals are 300 or fewer traffic-related deaths, and then also 850 or fewer traffic-related serious injuries.
So pretty much this is our Kenyon County team when it comes to TZD. We work together with the Sheriff's Office, Cannon Falls, Kenyon, of course, Zumbrota, Red Wing, and of course the fire department and all the services from Kenyon County as well too. So it's a huge coalition of departments and personnel towards 0 deaths. So one of the things about our team, excuse me, is that we have an awesome mutual aid teamwork environment, which means everybody helps each other out. We help other cities, county helps us out. We become pretty much a big whole family when it comes to taking care of each other and enforcing towards 0 death goals. So that's one of the biggest things, that we know each other, we work well together. One of my goals for Kenyon is to bring more enforcement to Kenyon area, not just specifically in the city, but last year I tried to do a lot more seatbelt enforcement and speeding enforcement in the area. And the other thing that I've been trying to do is DWI enforcement in the Wanluno Kenyon area, so it's not specifically just focus on our city, but the area itself. Since we got high traffic going through Highway 56 and Highway 60, our city's a center hub for constant travel, constant traffic. So we've been trying to just, again, deliver a message, and it's not always from citing anybody, or it's that connection that we make with people that makes the difference. So that's my goal for this year as well, being the coordinator here. So, but again, we have a great team that comes here and helps us do that.
And also with that being said, part of our partnership is also bringing, when there's events and that kind of thing, making sure that we're doing outreach in our different communities as well. So we have different events and activities that we are also able to bring into our communities as well. Yep. And so then, in regards to our focus areas, regional crash data has shown that our highest contributing factors for our traffic-related fatalities and our serious injuries are speed, seatbelt use, distracted driving, and impaired driving. You'll see that we have 3 squares that represent the differences. So we have the seatbelt, distracted driving. I specifically like that one because it shows that distracted driving is not just cell phone use. It's a lot more than that. It shows eating, it shows drinking, it shows, one of the things is like, if you have a child in your back seat and you're looking behind them to talk to your child, that's distracted driving. You're not paying attention to driving and you're not looking forward, etc. We have speeding, but then also the impaired driving. Impaired driving is more than just alcohol use. Impaired driving is narcotics, it's recreational drugs, it's drugs that are prescribed to you, but then also drugs that aren't prescribed to you, it's marijuana, it's other things as well. So I like that one just because a lot of people assume that impaired driving is only alcohol-based, but impaired driving is more than that as well. But also, 2012 to 2016, I just wanted to point out a fact that in regards to our fatalities in Goodhue County and our serious injuries, we are at or above the state average in all 4 of these focus areas. So also wanting to hit that point home. Speed. In 2017, speed was a contributing factor in 22% of single vehicle crashes. Young adult motorists are the most common offenders and those at greatest risk. In crashes, odds are 4 times greater for injury if a motorist is not buckled up. In 2017, 76% of unbelted deaths occurred in greater Minnesota. Children are paying with their lives if they are not in proper car seats. From 2013 to 2017, in Minnesota, 18 children ages 0 through 7 were killed in motor vehicles, and only 9 of those victims were known to be properly secured. Of the 83 children, ages 0 through 7, seriously injured in motor vehicles, only 47% of those victims were known to be properly secured. Distracted driving, over the last 5 years, 13 through 17, in Minnesota, distracted driving was a contributing factor in 1 in 5 crashes, resulting in an average of 53 deaths and 216 serious injuries each year. These numbers are estimates and underreported due to the challenges of determining distraction as a tax factor. Many times you'll hear about legislation that is going through, and many times one of the laws that has been brought forward has been the hands-free laws, and many times in regards to the hands-free laws, that is so that it can help provide an opportunity for enforcement to provide an opportunity to actually enforce the laws that are already in place. Currently, there are certain things that you can do in your car on the phone that are legal. And so it's very hard to give a citation to somebody just because you see them on their phone. And so depending on many different factors, it's hard sometimes to enforce that law. So by passing the hands-free law, it would be something where if an officer sees you touching your phone or on your phone, then they would be able to cite and enforce the laws that are in place already. And so that would just make it easier to then cite somebody and then enforce that law. Because like I said, currently somebody could say, oh, well, I was doing this, which is technically legal, and then it makes it very hard. Not impossible, but very difficult to enforce the laws that are currently in place. We have seen a reduction of alcohol related deaths in Minnesota, but impaired driving is still a serious threat on our roads. In 2017, impaired driving contributed to 72 deaths, and there were nearly 25,000 motorists arrested for DWI in 2017, and 1 in 7 Minnesota drivers have a DWI on record. So thank you for letting us provide the update for you for the TCD program and what we're doing here in Goodhue County. And any questions or anything before we leave? Thank you.
Actually, when you were doing that, I did have questions, but I didn't want to break the flow, and now I don't recall exactly.
Oh. All right, well,
Yeah, so a few years ago, there was a program where if you were cited for a small traffic violation, like not having your seatbelt or speeding a little bit over the limit, that instead of just paying the fine, you could actually go to like a driver's education course, you know, and you're like in Red Wing and get a little refresher on, you know, how to drive safer. And then the state got mad because they were losing out on the revenue of that, and they took it away. Do you know, is there ever been an attempt to reinstate that program?
Not that I've heard of it, like Lee.
That's too bad, because I mean, to me, that seems like a perfect,
It was a very nice opportunity.
yeah, relationship between law enforcement and you know, I know when I was on the county board, there were a lot of people who said, boy, I really appreciated that. You could keep it off your record, but you had to go do a little driver's education and learn what you were doing wrong. So
I would like to see that reinstated. If we could do something to help people keep their driver's licenses, I think in the long run, that's really the better way to do it.
yeah, okay.
So would that be applicable to drunk driving?
I think it was mainly speeding, seatbelt.
Minor traffic infractions,
Right.
seatbelt, speeding, not using the turn signal, things like that.
But it kept it didn't go to your insurance then. If you went to this driver's course, and you know, then it was like get a little education, and you'll give you a second chance.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
So you need to get a diploma to have that worthwhile.
Sort
Study
of.
and so on.
Sort of.
well, thank you very much.
Yep.
Thank you. So now we can move on to engineering. Joe?
Council. Happy New Year. First time I've got a chance to see you guys in 2019, so it's nice to be back for another year with Kenyon City Council. In your packet tonight is a memo, just with a brief update on a couple of the current projects we're working on for the city. The Red Wing Avenue project, if you recall, you authorized most of the preliminary activities to gather the background data that we're needing to get ready for that project. Since the last meeting, a couple of the things have been accomplished is the soil borings were completed and the report was finished, and we received that report from the geotechnical sub-consultant that we used for the project. They also got the sewer mains televised on Red Wing Avenue, so we've got the video records along with the written report on those. We haven't had a chance to go through them completely yet, but reading the summary reports from both the soil borings and from the televising, nothing unexpected was really found. All the typical kinds of things we would expect in the aged sanitary sewer system. Things are leaking and there are cracked pipes and things in need of attention, which we very well expected. Soils, nothing that was too out of the ordinary or too unanticipated, nothing that's unusual that we've come across yet. So we'll continue to review that report and get more detailed information ready for your review. The next thing we'll be completing is the topographic survey, where we go out and we survey all the physical features of the corridor, and we record all the elevations so that we can start to create the design surface and design profiles for the road. That should be starting this week and should take about 2 weeks to get completed, and then we'll take that back to the office, process it, and create the drawings from that. So that information should be roughly by the end of the month. That information should be ready. And the goal then would be to put together kind of a summary package of all of the preliminary information that's been compiled and bring that to you if it's ready for the meeting in February. And at that time then, it'll be for the council to consider if you want to continue to develop a project for 2020 construction season, then you could actually consider authorizing a feasibility report where we would initiate the Chapter 429 process. We would put together the formal feasibility report that would then be shared with the public at a public hearing, and then would lead ultimately to design and construction of the roadway. So, just an update that things are happening, progress is being made. Should have the preliminary activities.
Same work being done, so.
Should have the information, or should have the activities wrapped up, and hopefully the information ready for the next council meeting, and then we can consider whether you want to take the next step from there.
Joe?
And then the other project is the 2nd Street sanitary sewer improvements. As you know, that's primarily the project to line that hotspot block of 2nd Street, where we've got the where we're getting these historically high mercury readings, and to replace a couple of those sanitary sewer services. We're working on the plans. That one you actually authorized us to do the detailed plans, get them ready for bidding and construction. We do need some survey work for that, and so that's going to be done here over the next couple of weeks while we're out surveying Red Wing Avenue.
I saw someone working on that down there.
Probably getting ready, yep. And so then, once that's done, we can incorporate that into the plan. And the schedule right now is to bring the plans to you at your March meeting and for consideration of approval. And if you approve the plans at that time, then they'd be ready to advertise and accept bids in April. And that's right in line with the schedule that had been laid out. So everything is on track with that project as well.
Have you heard anything back from MnDOT about traffic?
No, in fact, Derek from our office was face-to-face meeting. He's got set up tomorrow with MnDOT, so he's going to go down and he's going to talk about the permit process and the detour routes and traffic control for when we have that project. He's going to start laying the groundwork for that, so that we make sure we have the same expectations between us and MnDOT. And we know what will be allowed and what won't be allowed, and we can get that laid out properly in our plan and specification.
Hopefully MnDOT and MPCA put this on the same priority level.
Yeah. Well, the good thing is we don't have that much excavation to do. We'll have some,
No.
but it should be isolated, so we should be able to isolate it, to discrete periods of time or days of the week.
There should be very little time that the
Yep.
traffic would actually be off that street.
Right, and
And really comparable to parade closures.
that's what I was going to say is that we encounter this when we have the Rose Fest parade, and so I think establishing a detours like that would take place for a number of hours during a specified day.
Yeah.
That type of thing would be the kind of thing that we'll be looking at. But we are meeting with them tomorrow, and we should get better feedback from them, have a better handle on things after that.
Well, thank you.
You're welcome.
So now we move on to number 8, legal, and this is one that looks like a lot, but it actually is a large number of annual reauthorize, reappoint situations that can be grouped, and many of them voted on as one motion. So first we have item A here, which is appointments to the Planning Commission, Utility Commission, Library Board, EDA, Acting Mayor, Richard. A new duty here.
Mm-hmm. I'm anxious for you to take several weeks off anyway.
Well, perhaps you might want to fund a junket
Yeah.
that would
Yeah, that would be
necessitate
fair,
doing
I
that.
suppose. I will put that in front of the,
Somehow I don't think our attorney likes that idea.
well, maybe he takes a few weeks off too.
In any case, we have all these items here, the legal newspaper, the Security State Banking Depository, Scott Riggs being city attorney, et cetera. Do we have a motion to approve all those items under A?
So moved. Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Wonderful. Then we move on to item D, which is resolution 2019-01, establishing license fees and compensation, another annual thing. There's several modifications in that list from what was last year. But I would call for a motion to approve resolution 2019-01.
So moved.
Second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. And that motion passes. VFW annual dance permit. Just to mix it up, I will move that we approve VFW's annual dance permit.
And I will heartily second that.
All in favor?
Aye.
Now we have D and E here, annual refuse licenses, and annual recycling licenses. We have quite a number of new refuse license roll-off companies.
We have lots of trash here.
Well, we get a permit fee from them, and
Yes.
their customer pays.
We're all about the money.
No, but we're about properly using the money that we have. So, motion to approve the refuse and recycling licenses.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
And we move down to F, annual sidewalk construction licenses for Ace Hardware, VFW 141, Kenyon Leader, Mary's Rustic Rose, Shishi's Luncheria, I never know how to pronounce that thing.
Che.
Yeah, but it's Lunchera,
Luncheria.
Luncheria,
No I.
Chair,
yeah. Neither do I. Price found consignment, DNS banners and print, and Taco Express. Motion to approve construction licenses.
So moved. Second.
All in favor?
Aye. And chance again.
Yes. And then the next item is Shay Lunchera mobile merchant license.
I'll move approval of that.
I'll second that.
All in favor?
Aye.
I'll have to go over and ask those people, tell me what you call this, and talk in my tape recorder so I can learn it. And then we had the sticky wicket. Yeah, Kennedy and Graven 2019 race. As with everything else in life, it's
Yes,
a small annual increase.
I'll make a motion that we approve it.
Second. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Opposed?
It could have been 2.5%, I don't know.
There you go. And now we get into another item which may actually consume some time. Discuss amending section 405 of the city code, rental units. I'm glad to see this come up because it is one of those orphan pieces of code that was passed but never actually put into effect, and that's worse than having nothing at all. They have ordinances that are not going to be enforced, that have no real weight.
Yeah, that question's come up before, and the issue is if you have it on the books, you're not going to enforce it, we should not have it on the books.
Exactly.
That would be a recommendation. Or, as Mark's pointed out, modifying it, if you're doing something that would make sense, that's fine too. So, but yeah, if you're not going to deal with it, it's been on the books since before 2004. So, it was there, it's been there a long time.
So this, in the packet, you have sections of the current ordinance that talk about licensing and inspection of all rental units. And I also put a copy of a ordinance from the city of Stewartville, which is just a really, you know, it has conduct, and it's got specific performance items that, you know, landlords have to meet. And then there's processes where they can get cited, you know, there's loud parties or police calls, et cetera, but it doesn't entail the city actually issuing a license, doing an annual inspection, those kind of things, because I think that was found to be, you know, just not feasible for a city our size to do that.
Extra cost on the city and on the landlord.
We definitely need something in the code that governs rental units, as the chief would be the first to attest to, obviously.
Yeah.
And I think this Stewartville example is a good kind of a starting point because it does still have, you know, teeth to it, and it's got standards, but it's not something that we have to, you know, just the whole administration of it would be much more realistic for us to do.
That brings up a couple of questions that I had when I was looking through this. One, I noticed this originally was passed 4 years after the one that we had here that never was enforced. And my question is, does anyone here know if they have actually followed through on this and what their experience has been?
I can find out. I have not followed up on that.
That's one thing I think we definitely want to know before we get anything else. Another question on this is on the subdivision 9 about background checks of prospective tenants. And it mentions a different county, but that, of course, because they're in a different county. Otherwise, it's pretty well written. I like the fact that they say that nothing would be done unless the landlord presents an informed consent / waiver form. In other words, so that the person whose background is being checked knows that this is happening. 2 questions. The last line of that subdivision 9 The applicant shall pay an investigation fee as established by the Law Enforcement Records Division. The two questions are, in this case, who is the applicant? The landlord requesting it or the prospective tenant? And do we have any idea of what that investigation fee might cost?
Well, I think it's applicants for rental, and it could be $25, you know. It's common in, I think, in larger cities.
Well, yeah,
especially
this would be
Okay.
something set by the sheriff's department. Since they
Well, that could be set by the city, could be set within the ordinance, I mean, but it's just, and it talks in here about they may request, it doesn't require it, so
Right,
that's
right,
one of the things
right.
that would have to be looked at.
Right.
I guess kind of my idea was with this, if the council liked the direction of saying, we don't want the rental, you know, requirements of the current ordinance, and we want an ordinance that still covers things like, you know, indecent conduct, gambling, or, you know, unlawful sale of alcoholic beverages, unlawful sale of narcotics, weapons, you know, there's other things that can be added. Something that affects, so we still have a range of items that are governed by this, but we just don't license them.
Right.
That probably that Scott through Kenyon and Graven might also have some other examples of ordinances that they've done
Going back to the
similar to this.
Going back to the Stewartville ordinance, subdivision before the one that I just read, where all written leases for rental premises in the city executed after, and then be the date that the ordinance goes into effect, shall contain a clause providing that conduct which would be a violation of subdivision 2 shall constitute both a material breach of the lease and grounds for termination of such lease. Now that on the face of it is really good. That's giving the landlord the power to, if this happens, I've got the legal right to throw you out because of it's in the lease that you signed when you rented. Then the failure to include the above-mentioned clause in a lease for rental properties shall be a misdemeanor. That's, how do you police and enforce that?
Well, this provision, and it's, I'll call it a mini crime-free addendum, is what it is. And there are crime-free addendums out there in many rental-type programs for cities. They have been challenged in some degree, but in the vast majority of cities that have a rental housing program that go into the multifamily crime-free program as well, have a long addendum that applies. It's enforceable. It does give the landlord some ability, and the requirement from the city side is you need to include it or you're violating our ordinance as well. So that this is no different than that. It's just more of a mini provision than the longer crime-free addendum that, say, a city like Faribault has, or you know, pick the multiple metro cities that all have that as well. So it's enforceable, yes, I get that.
Well, I wasn't doubting that having that in the lease, it was making the failure to put that in your lease agreement a misdemeanor. Well,
I understand what you're saying. Some people argue that's a little broad, but that is how the typical crime-free program works. This is, I would call it crime-free light, but it is citing to a number of provisions, and it does give you the teeth to say, landlord, you need to have this, and by the way, we're showing you that these provisions are a violation of the lease, so a tenant would know that up front as well.
This is not, I'm not opposed in any manner to this, but it's something that needs to be crafted very carefully.
Oh, yeah.
There is such great potential for people to claim, you're just out to get me.
Yeah. It has to be crafted carefully, and it has to be enforced without any bias. It has to be uniformly enforced, no matter what property and what tenant or what landlord. And that's where you will see pushback on occasion. There are some lawsuits floating out there in different, much more extensive programs than this, but these programs exist, they're out there, and they've been out there for a long time.
But regardless of moving forward, I think anything's better than what's on file right now with the city. I was really surprised when I read through the current code. The first sentence is 6 lines long. It's one sentence, and it looks to me, Mark, that you'd probably have to go house to house to see if anyone was you have to check, the way this is written, you have to check every house in the city.
I know, it's
Totally unworkable.
And then, the 405.23, failure to register, if you fail to register, it could be punishable by up to a $700 fine or 90 days in jail or both. To me, this thing's gotta go. If that means working off of something a little bit simpler and gets to the point, tweaking the Stewartville ordinance, I'm definitely more in favor of that, because,
Much more reasonable.
I'm shocked that this ever even made its way into, being a ordinance. I would never have voted for it, I'll tell you that. It seems like you'd be doing house-to-house checks about every 3 months to see if anybody there's renting or if they're just living
There are
there.
your papers.
Right, yeah, it's,
And if you found something wrong on an inspection, how many times would you have to go back to see if it was fixed?
well, that's it. And, who would do the inspection?
Who would do the inspection?
Contract
Who
with
would
somebody,
pay for the
but,
inspection?
yeah, I just think it is much.
Not.
Would a landlord need to include this in a lease?
Well, the way a lot of these are written, provisions within ordinances like this, do have to be included in leases. So if you adopt it, then you probably say the next lease, or do they?
Yeah, and I think that's where the council has some latitude on when you start that. You typically would say we're beginning this program on, such and such date, and any leases that follow that point that are entered into at that point or beyond would include that.
Well, it's subdivision 8 here in Stewartville.
Yeah.
All leases executed after this date. So you got a renter that's signed a lease before that, you don't necessarily need to go and change it, but these leases typically are for a stated period of time. When that would be renewed, then the new lease would have to have it. A good landlord, of course, would just make sure that his tenants were aware that this is something that's going to be coming up the next time we sign. It's nothing against you or any other individual. It's just a new city program.
So do we direct Scott to tweak this and come back with something, or what's the next step?
Yeah, that's up to you folks, but I think that's what Mark was saying, that we'd come up with something, bring you some language that's more in tune with the Stewartville ordinance, but consistent with our code, which would replace this section 405.
And I would definitely like to know what has been their experience. If we're going to be basing ours off of this, apparently that's been in effect for a number of years now.
So what is the intent of the ordinance? To protect the landlord, to protect the city, to protect the other people who don't rent?
All of the above.
Well, it's kind of all of the above, but it's to protect the community, and it's to give, teeth.
So it doesn't protect the renter at all?
Well, if the renter, this has pretty much most of the conditions, or all these conditions that are listed are currently unlawful anyway by, state or city code. And so what this does is it just makes it, if you violate these in the right proportion, you could get evicted. Where before, people, committed crimes, and, you heard about this in big cities, but they had difficulty, owners, public housing authorities, whatever they were, of the rental units had trouble evicting people when they committed crimes. Well, now it's in vogue, has been for quite some time, to make it so that if you commit crimes, you get evicted. That's the overall, overarching kind of why you would have this kind of ordinance, but then you drill down and you look at the specific things here, and you have to make it, you know, fit our community, fit the community, each community when they look at it has to kind of tweak it to make it fit. So there's different nuances of, you know, all these things.
Yeah, and Richard, your point, it doesn't protect somebody who's doing these violations,
No.
but if there's another
Yes.
tenant next door,
Exactly.
and right there, it certainly protects those
Protect
tenants.
renters against
Yeah.
the actions of other renters.
Right.
Okay, but not against a homeowner who's really making a racket and keeping you up all night and so on. Oh, you're a homeowner, so you can do whatever you want.
Well, they still can't do this, but yeah, you can't evict them, because how do you evict the homeowner? But yeah, they
They
still
can
can't
get
do the
charged.
same. They
Right,
be charged
okay.
similarly, and that's what would
Yeah.
happen.
Yeah.
But,
So why not just have a law that says you do anything wrong and you get evicted? We can throw you out if you do anything wrong. And then you have to specify what anything wrong is.
Because, plain and simply, we do not own the property that these people are renting in, so therefore we do not have the direct right.
Yes, but you're
To do
talking
that.
about laws that are being violated, that are on the books, and you're having to restate that you get to be evicted for this law which is already on the books. I guess I'm saying that I am of the opinion that we don't need more laws, we just need laws that are enforced.
Well, right now, there are laws against those activities, yes. There is not currently in Kenyon an ordinance allowing that person to be evicted for those particular crimes. There
So
are other,
these are
there are
eviction
other
laws.
penalties for it, but this is to also, okay, you did this, you go to court, you're a judge, guilty, you pay your fine or whatever. By the way, you don't get to go move back into that apartment where you were before you went to jail because you have been evicted for violating these laws while you were renting there, in contradiction to the lease that you signed when you rented.
And is there something that says how quickly you can be evicted? Because I know in many cases, you can go for months and months before an eviction is enforceable. So whatever they're doing can happen for 3 months and then they move out. Well, okay.
Now, that would be one of the details that would need to be fleshed out in any ordinance that we were to bring forward.
typically, that would be covered in the lease itself, and they usually have an eviction provision. I've seen leases that don't have that, so I mean, they do exist, and some landlords just have a very simple document. But most standard leases that you would get, you can pull them up on the internet, would have an eviction or a default provision. This would be a default under that lease if the city adopted and had the language that's in, something similar to what's in the Stewartville ordinance.
And like our house here where we took forever to get the people to move out, is that the case with these evictions? That, okay, there's something, you can be evicted, but you're gonna have to go to court, and you're gonna have to do this, and you're gonna have to do that. We can't remedy the situation now, today, this week. It's months in advance.
And that one was a little bit different, because remember, that was a hazardous type building situation where there were issues occurring there. They believed they had a colorable right to be in the property.
Mhm.
It was determined that wasn't the case, and that's why they no longer were able to reside there, and the house was removed.
And how long did that take?
A long time.
Yes.
And
Okay.
again, different setting, when you're in a situation of hazardous building, and it was a little bit different than your normal process. We've had other ones that have gone much more smoothly than that. But yeah, there's sometimes there are that take longer. It's just the reality.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
Mayor? Could I ask, Chief, what do you think of an ordinance like the Stewartville? Does that help you at all in keeping peace and harmony between people living in close quarters, or do we not need it?
We certainly need something, and here's what I see in our small town, and I'm not dogging anybody, but we have people that don't have a lease in place, They just let somebody rent there by the goodness of their good nature, whatever it is, and there's an issue, and they come to us and want us to kick them out because they haven't paid rent or this or that, and we explain to them it's a civil issue, not a criminal issue. So I give them, we have books in the office, and we give 3 of them out a week for sure, that are from the Attorney General's office that cover tenant and landlord rights. We have one property that I know in 2016, 2017, we had 91 calls there. I approached the building owner numerous times. Well, you have a lease, but you don't have a lease. Well, your lease is expired, we're not gonna redo your lease because he doesn't like you. And it makes the people that are paying their rent on time and trying to be good neighbors and residents, it makes their life really, really difficult. What I would love to see is something, regardless of how we do it, that's consistent and fair across the board. Because then it gives the landlord some teeth, it gives the city some teeth, and I think we have too many nice people that just go, gosh, I really don't want to have to come and kick you out. You know, I've known you a long time and you're a good person. This way it gives them something, and it hopefully streamlines the process. I would like to see something in place, because the first thing I tell people, and if you ever want to come and hang out with me for a day, you will see how much of this we do in a day's time. It's, first thing I ask is, what does your lease say? Well, I don't have one. Well, you don't have anything then. If you don't have a lease, you're gonna have to go through the whole eviction process, which is gonna cost you, off the top of my head, $1,000. By the time you run it through the court system and do all of that. This, what I like about a system like this is it's consistent and fair. I was one of the first officers way back in the day to go through crime-free multi-housing training. When we offered the training countywide, we had the first meeting here and one person showed up. Because it also puts some onus on the building owners. And they don't want to have to follow some of these steps. And so it makes it a little tough as well. This kind of eases into that stuff. I think it's a good system. If we can get something that's consistent and fair, to answer your question, short term, yes, that would be very helpful. But we also do, like Rich, like most things, if there's a violation, we type it up, we send it to the city attorney and the county attorney, that they review it, tell us, you know, hey, yeah, this is something we can move forward with, or hey, why don't we try this, this, and this. I mean, this is not a boom, you're out thing. This is, it's like most things in our county, it's, okay, here's your first little wake-up call, now what are we gonna do about this? So, that answers your question.
Yep, does, thank you.
And it sounds like what you were saying is the landlord needs to be held accountable, and maybe even more so than the tenant.
Well, absolutely. We had one property in Palo, they own a few properties, it's a large professional organization. We had a call where some gentlemen were smoking marijuana in the apartment. We made them aware of it, and they were evicted because it says right here in the lease. Anyone, well, I wasn't home when they did it. They were just friends of us. It says in the lease, anyone smoking marijuana in this case is evicted. And we have other ones where serious things happen, and the neighbors are like, can you do something about this, please? And we're like, well, what does the lease say? And we always go back to that. If you don't have a lease, you don't really have anything. So, but yeah, it's a good program if we can get it consistent and fair across the board. Thank you.
Thank you, Lee. So my feeling at this point is yes, go back, just do some more searching, come up with put together a proposal that you think you too believe would fill our needs without being too far reaching to the point where it's going to cause a huge burden on the city. And bring it back to us in a month.
I think you'd want to include the chief in on that, those discussions
Yes.
as well too.
Mm-hmm. Oh, yeah.
I'll help any way I can.
Okay.
Okay, so now we can move on to old business, emergency mass notification software.
Yeah, no new information on that.
Update there is no update.
Right, exactly.
And an update on the meeting that you were at in Red Wing today about the solid waste situation.
So today was, this morning, the Goodhue County Board held a